In the graph provided by Mary Jo Zaliga and Jonah Esther, an associate professor of human resources and entrepreneurship, in the article Working Time Among Video Game Developers, Sons of 2004 to 2014, is able to show that management sees crunch time as a normal part of doing business in the game industry, with this often being mandatory and involved towards the worker. But this is also only targeted towards developers and not by the management, which shows how the harmful practices performed by video game industries today. Good afternoon, my name is Zachary Isaacs, and I ask the question, to what extent have video game companies exploiting their workers negatively impacted United States capitalism since the 2000th century? And my argument is that video game companies exploiting their workers have negatively impacted United States capitalism since the 2000th century by the establishment of silence mentalities and cultures, which have led to executives establishing more harsher working conditions and crunch times, with this often leading to the harming of the United States capitalism system. But to begin, the science mentality is often derogatory and harms the worker, as shown in the video. Roblox pressured us to delete our video, so we dug deeper, dug an interview with a former Roblox developer, as they talked after their experiences with their workers, after their bosses replacing their percentage cut with a fixed revenue, describing how in Roblox there's a culture against speaking out, and that on Roblox there's no official way to speak one's mind out on the platform. This not only demonstrates that working conditions performed by these workers are often harmful and exploitative towards the worker, but also demonstrates how if they speak out, they risk losing their job because of it. This type of power struggle is also demonstrated by the image, the holdout, provided by College Board as stimulus, as shown by the men in the image holding a higher power in which the time period was created, and affecting which the woman has to hide their opinion from the men, demonstrating the power of the executives as they hold more power over the workers trying to speak out. This is also demonstrated in the video. In the video, The Dark Side of the Video Game Industry and How to Protect Yourself from It, by Adam Duff, a former artist of a large video game company, when he describes examples of sexual and physical harassment, whereas when he was one of the victims, he, in his workout towards the Human Resources Department, was fired the next day without a warning or notice. This not only demonstrates that unjust actions can have on the worker, with the developers and workers often being fired for just speaking out. Subsequently, the power given to executives by the science mentality often allows them to establish harsher working conditions, and this can be demonstrated in the academic article EA Spouse and Video Game Labor: Enjoyment, Exclusion, Exploitation, and Sodas by Nick D. Rutherford and George D. Puter, with one of the authors being a professor with a focus on the rise of technology and the internet, when they say that during crunch time, 35% of respondents stated that they work 65 through 80 hours a week, with 13% describing how they work more than 80 hours a week, which more than 100 hours are not unheard of. In the IGDA report, it describes how management sees crunch time as a normal part of doing business, and that with only 2% of them establish no crunch policies in the workplace. Crunch time has effectively been built into the equation. This not only demonstrates how the crunch time provided to the worker has an indefinite amount of time behind it, but in the article, as well in the article, Creativity Loves Constraints, the Google's 20% plan by Abe Walker, who's a graduate student of sociology in the University of New York, as he describes how tech workers work longer hours than they otherwise would and get less pay for it. With Google's cafeteria serving a full dinner 4 nights a week, with the expectation they work up to and beyond dinner time, with other establishments such as laundromats, haircuts, and gyms, virtually eliminating the need to ever go home. This further demonstrates how the crunch time experienced by these workers is built into their work jobs, but often can harm the worker. Likewise, in this combination of pressure and uncompensated work time often combine themselves that would greatly harm United States capitalism. Likewise, in the academic article, The Economic Crisis, Performance Models and Value-Based Education by Anna Maria Gregor and Adria Matul, as they describe that the rush to make money has led to has led to the financial crisis of 2008. Therefore, it should now be a lesson to what happens to economic systems dominated by greed and personal interests. Therefore, and that's why in the end, the financial crisis of 2008 was made prominent by the banks, the prominent part of the economy, wanting more out of their employees. This parallels the action between executives and the worker, as the worker with crunch time wants more out of their employee. This is also demonstrated in the academic article Joseph Scumpier and Thorstein Veblen on theoretical determinism, individualism, and institutions by Theophanes Papagao and Panagiotis G. Michaelides, as they describe capitalism is constitutionally unable to produce emotional attachment towards oneself. Constitutionally, and it produces universal hostility towards itself. Hence, demonstrating why, in the image, many countries around the world today are losing faith in capitalism, describing how it does more harm to them than good, with the large percentages often described by them. This not only demonstrates how, if nothing is done to change the United States capitalism by its economic system or its practices that are contained with it, many countries around the world will start to leave United States capitalism. But on the other hand, the strain of the economic system put on by the exploitation of workers in the video game industry could be lessened if the workers were to form unions. This would be able to allow them to have better working conditions, such as a voice at work, and protect them against unjust firing. But this would only happen as a result of the generalization of unions with the voice of the majority taken over, leading to conflicting ideals in the system, potentially lessening the impact which unions could create onto the worker. Here on my right side. Thank you. Any questions?
I do have 2 questions. Let me just scribble down the time. All right, first question. What evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and why didn't you use it?
Well, I think that during the beginning part of my research process, I gathered a bunch of resource documents stating around capitalism. Many of these documents did not help me in the further research, as I made my question more specific, and these sources were removed because of that.
Okay. And what advice would you have for someone who researches this topic in the future?
I would suggest for them to work on smaller companies, as mostly in the documents, I targeted larger companies with more employees and larger scopes of their gains. I think that if they are able to focus on the smaller industries, they'll be able to see something similar to this.